Hello.
Hey, this is Jens.
Hey, Jens. Good to hear from you.
So, this is the... Am I calling the right person now?
Yes, this is Harlan with Metal Temple.
Cool.
So, first question is something that's really just been kind of baffling me, and I really wanted to get what your take on this is the most recent thing other than the new album that I heard about from Borknagar is that they decided to put out a limited edition organic beard oil. And I just wanted to ask, how did you get to that decision of of doing that? Because that's pretty. I've never heard of a band putting out a men's hygiene product.
It was like this. A friend of mine whom I worked with for some mobile marketing company, he goes down to Slovenia for business, and he's introduced to a couple of local entrepreneurs, and this one guy has a beard oil, and then he says, "Oh, I know a couple of bearded guys up in Norway. I want to bring this product to Norway and sell it in Norway." And they say, "Yeah, we're interested in that because we don't have a distribution there." And then he says, I know this guy. He's in this band, and he's got a beard. Maybe I'll get him to help me out." And these guys ask, "Which band is this?" "Oh, I think they're called Borknagar." And I think he actually had to look me up on Facebook to figure out what the band name was. Okay. And it turns out these guys down in Slovenia, they know us, and they saw us play on this festival called Metal Days, and there's a whole laughing process there. And he comes back home and he phones me up and he says, "Well, I met some fans of yours down in Slovenia." So, and I said, "Now what's going on now then?" And he tells me about this beard oil and that he's bringing the product back to Norway, and that he got a request from the entrepreneur down in Slovenia if we want to do a cooperation with that. And I said, "Well, beard oil, okay, what? Why not?"
Yeah.
And everybody's doing all the 1349 stout beer, and Dimmeborgir made condoms.
You're kidding me.
No.
Oh, God.
Dimmeborgir and Cradle of Filth made condoms back in the days, which were labeled, but that beer thing is the meta these days. And I call the guys up and I say they want to make beard oil with our brand on it, and they're offering us some profits from it, So and why not have fun with this?
Yeah.
So all the guys just laughed. And, "Okay, we got beards. We can use some beard oil. Why would we want to use beard oil?" So I started by calling it up and said, "Why do we want to use beard oil? We don't use beard oil." And I was persuaded that beard oil is good for you. Mm. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to work out because everybody in the band has a pretty prominent beard. And I would think a lot of your fans have beards. Well, maybe not the women. Hopefully not the women. But
yeah, but they started. No, but this shit is good for your hair anyway. So I kind of put it on the length of my hair. It's kind of good.
Oh, yeah, I got a beard myself.
It's not like a thought through marketing thing. It's just for laughs. We don't do music professionally. We do it as an advanced hobby. We all have careers and jobs and family and all that stuff. So everything we do is for laughs.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about the new album, Winter Thrice. I actually just checked out the music video for the title track, and I wanted to ask you if you had any idea about where the title of the album, Winter Thrice, came from. Is there like a special meaning for that?
it's not like it's a coincidence, but it turned out in the end to be the title and the song that we chose as our title for the whole album.
Right.
Because it turned out so good. The song title of itself is more of a. I have to admit, I never asked Øystein, what did you mean about this text, and why did you write that text? It's more of a like understanding about the forces of nature, and the hint of the winter thrice is hinting towards expecting tougher times. It's like the whole Game of Thrones.
Right, winter is coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Expect some tougher times. It's not one winter; it's 3 winters.
Yeah,
you can relate that all the way into Ragnarok and mythology. If you want to.
I was just curious about it because I wasn't sure if it was referencing back to some of the band's earlier material, because I know that it's been kind of an overarching theme with the lyrics of the music. Has a lot to do with nature and being connected to the Norwegian landscape, and I know that winter is kind of I guess you can say romanticized in Scandinavian culture, so I wasn't sure if there was like a deeper meaning to it.
It's not like it's romanticized, but I actually read an article yesterday written by an American journalist that went up to northern Norway, which is where I'm from, and researched why isn't winter a problem for Norwegians. So it's not like it's romanticized. It's just here, so let's deal with it.
Yeah.
And of course you have the whole the relation with nature and all that stuff. That's what it's all about. It's the fascinating powers of nature. And how can that not fascinate? And the thing we want to emphasize is the fact that when you're facing such a power, you need to let it fascinate you, and you need to observe it, and you need to learn how to survive it. But don't make it into your fucking religion, man.
Right.
Yeah. Don't make everything into religion. It's nature. It's physics.
So, was there anything new that you tried out with the guitars on Winter Thrice, as far as writing riffs or tracking or using new equipment? Was there any kind of experimentation that you did with your guitar tone on this album versus the last album, Erd?
Yeah, but that's some very technical stuff that actually doesn't have anything to do with the sound. I kind of developed more on for my own sake a couple of things that I tried, like the wah-wah pedal, which I wanted to experiment some more with on this album, and I actually recorded some things that I think Ugren cut out. So that couldn't have been too good. But so no, we kind of we are sticking to our systems that work, but the way we do it now, it's only been done like this is the third album we do it this way. So we kind of trying to keep up with technological development, and as long as it makes shit easier for us. That's the idea.
And were you inspired by other artists or bands and what they were doing with their guitars when you were performing? Because I hesitate to use the word write the songs, because I know Øystein did the majority of the writing. But was there any sort of influences that kind of inspired you as far as guitar playing or tone? Or were you inspired by your older material from the 90s?
No. I kind of when I do my solos and those melody lines, I kind of I tend to get the inspiration from my early the early bands that I got into, which made me play guitar in the first place. So it's like I still laugh when I hear Noctilucent with that lead solo on it, because it's I can now call it my that's my Gary Moore solo. Shit like that. When I did the dual parts on the last song, The Dominant Winds, I'm not sure. There's probably a bit of Thin Lizzy in there. Maiden, Thin Lizzy. Always enjoyed the dual guitar parts.
Yeah, definitely.
Like that. So that's the kind of things. That's why I do those kinds of things. So yeah. I don't. I tend to go back to, because obviously the shit that I started listening to when I started playing guitars is also what formed my technique. So it kind of when I do these things, the blurbs come back and get used. So I know Øystein can pick them out pretty easy, at least.
Okay. And did you teach yourself how to play guitar from listening to metal albums?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Started not metal albums. I started with stuff like Gary Moore and Jimi Hendrix. I moved into Tin Lizzy, and I got in a band about that age when I was 14, I guess, 14 or 15. And I started rehearsing the band thingy. It was more pop rock. I think we covered stuff like Bryan Adams and all that stuff while I was rehearsing my Gary Moore and all that solo stuff, which was his blues album at the time. And then I started playing in a cover band when I was 17, which moved me into Maiden and Metallica and Judas Priest, all that stuff.
Okay.
So I picked it all up. I just listened to the albums and rehearsed.
Cool. So just to get back to the new album, yeah, I've already seen people online say that Andreas, who's more popularly known as Vintersorg, that they were saying his vocal performance on the new album is probably, they say it's his best to date. So I wanted to hear what your thoughts were on the work that he put on that album.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah.
You know about his accident?
I read a little bit about the accident. He fell down some stairs.
No, he fell on a building that was under construction. He fell from the first floor down to the ground floor on his back and split his head open.
Oh my God!
And he wakes up, and the first thing he says is, "I don't have time for this. I'm supposed to record the lyrics, the vocals for Borknagar." And he calls up Øystein, and they had a rather weird conversation, because obviously he was influenced by some heavy drugs, because his head was split in 4 ways. It was bad. It was really bad. And he says, "I'm so sorry, I can't finish the vocals." I apparently had an accident, and of course Øystein's been talking to his wife then for 2 days, and he's still talking about it. It was absurd. Dude, get well. Don't worry about the goddamn lyrics. So by the time of his accident, he actually had most of it done, and then he did a few adjustments a little later, even with no hearing on his right ear. So it was rather weird.
Wow.
But he was so dedicated, and and he was also supposed to join us for the recording, the video recording, and the photo shoot and all that. But then he had a complication, and the doctor grounded him. So he wasn't allowed to move out of his city because he lives up in northern Sweden, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's pretty strong.
That's really remarkable that he, after partially losing some of his hearing, which is such a big part of being a vocalist, is being able to hear your own voice, that he's able to deliver, you know, what a lot of people are saying, like you said, a mind-blowing performance.
Yeah. Yeah, but he's a special one. That one, he's talented, and
no kidding.
What can I say?
Speaking of talented vocalists, I noticed on the video that Garm is on the new album from Over.
Yeah,
and I know he's been on previous records with you guys.
He was the original vocalist.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, he was on the 2 first albums.
Oh.
So what happened is that when the second album was out, it was released on Century Media in '97, and Century Media obviously wanted Borknagar to tour,
mm-hmm.
to go on a tour. So Garm then pulled out. That's when I was involved, because Øystein needed a second guitarist for the tour, and he called me. And then Chris pulled out because he kind of saw that Borknagar was moving into a position where he couldn't maintain his focus with Arcturus and Ulver at the time. So he pulled out, and he actually told me to go talk to Vortex. So he's a rather important part of the beginning, the early years of Borknagar.
And so what was it like working with him again on Winter Thrice?
Well, amazing, so to say. He's also a very talented guy. He's focused. He's very creative. It's like we don't have to explain to him what to do. He knows the band, he knows us, he knows music. So it's like Øystein sent him the files, and for one song where he said, "Can you do at least some chorus on the parts there?" And then Chris brought the files into his home studio, and after a couple of hours, he contacted us and said, "Can you just send me the whole album? I want to listen to all of this." And then he gets back to us, and he did all of that on Winter Thrice. And it's like, wow! I just started singing and I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
And then there's a few days, and he says, "I added some vocals on this one song that's called The Terminus," and he called me up and started instructing me on some guitar parts. "I want you to do this and that." It's so great, man. So it's I don't know what to call it. It's like just release the hounds and see what happens.
Yeah. It looks like Winter Thrice is already kind of gaining a lot of notoriety just from the amount of I hesitate to use the word star power, because where I live, nobody knows who Garm is, nobody knows who I.C.S. Vortex is, but I mean, to me, they're really huge figures in extreme heavy metal. And this new album just, it has. I haven't heard the whole thing yet, but
really?
Yeah, I didn't get a copy from Century Media, so I haven't gotten to listen to the whole thing. But I'm going to get around to listening to it for sure, because it seems like it has a whole lot of potential for being just a really memorable release. And Borknagar has a pretty big repertoire of a lot of notable songs, and that kind of just to lead into my next question. I would probably say the most notable song out of the repertoire would be Colossus off of Quintessence.
Yeah.
And that was the first Borknagar song I ever heard when I started getting into black metal and death metal back when I was a teenager. So I wanted to kind of tap into that song Colossus. What do you think was it about that song now, since it's been 16 years after Quintessence came out? What do you think was it about that song that really kind of made it stand out above a lot of the other songs that you guys have recorded?
Yeah. If I knew that formula, I would probably give out albums with that kind of. I think, Colossus was the second song actually that Vortex contributed into the discography, and it's rather weird because back in those days he was the guy that was trying to pull us towards being more black metal, while some of us were experimenting, going more prog already back then. But when he creates music, he has a bit of a different approach than Øystein, and it turns out like rock and roll songs, and so it's like a rock and roll. It's a rock song that turns into a metal song, and it's complicated and it builds up, and it has harmonies. So it has a lot of the layers that kind of makes it into a easy to catch tune, and it still challenges you because it goes into a riot party with grim vocals and all that stuff. So it's not like your regular radio hit.
No, definitely not. It's just got one of the most powerful introductions to any, I know how some artists kind of don't like the term Viking metal because there's not really anything about the music itself that kind of conveys a like Viking ambience or something. I think it has more to do with the point of origin of where the band comes from. But there's just there's a very powerful symphonic force right from the beginning of the song, and it's funny that I'm talking to you now versus 15 years ago when I first heard Colossus, because I remember I had a whole big playlist of black metal and death metal songs that I would go through, and Colossus always kind of stood out because it was so much different, so much more different than a lot of these other bands I was listening to from Sweden and Norway and Finland.
Yeah. And I think you actually kind of you said it yourself there. It stands out in between because it's kind of it hides in the black metal, but it's not a black metal song.
No.
So I think that's what it did on the Quintessence album. It's there in between all the other stuff that's more a mix of black metal, epic metal, and like all over the place metal, because we're not really sure you can box that album either.
No, you definitely can't.
So I don't know. I don't mind anything you call it, black metal or Viking or pagan or whatever you call it, because it's kind of more of that's how it is. And then there's Colossus, the whole that stands out in the whole dynamic, which is so important to the whole to our whole I don't know, universe or sphere. The whole idea about dynamics is that's what it's all about, which is portrayed in the music as well.
Yeah, I think what definitely stood out about Colossus was the I.C.S. Vortex's vocals, which are definitely more operatic, but not so much in like a really kind of overtly cheesy Nightwish kind of way. There's definitely just it's a voice that kind of transcends just being a musician singing a song, and especially with the guitars and the drums backing it up, it just kind of like elevates itself to this kind of demigod level of metal.
Well, thanks.
I know I'm. You're welcome.
I can tell you that it's a song that's still very fun to play live. I still really enjoy it when it's time to play that, and generally it's a good experience to play it because so many people know the lyrics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We played at some of the larger European festivals, and you can hear the crowd just singing so loud it kind of surpasses the speakers. That's which gives me the chills every time.
It gives me the chills just hearing about it.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah. I know this doesn't really have too much to do with Borknagar, but since it's been recent enough to kind of discuss this, I wanted to talk a little bit about Lemmy Kilmister with you, and I know that he had such a huge impact on millions of people, whether they were heavy metal fans or hard rock fans. I wanted to ask you, as a fan or as a musician, how much influence did Motorhead have on you, and whether or not you ever got to meet him?
I can tell you my Lemmy story or my Motorhead story. I haven't actually told this to anyone, but I met the guy. I think I met him 3 times, and it was like this. Back in 2000 and 2001, I worked as a bartender and DJ downtown on one of the metal bars in Oslo, which was a special time. It was the days when me and Vortex were in Borknagar, and we would handle the bar there together on Saturday nights. So it's like we had so much fun in that place. Mm-hmm. Obviously, making everybody drunk and putting on a show at the same time. And the owner of that place, he is an old school rock drummer who was touring already in the late 70s and all the 80s with a Norwegian rock band, hard rock. And he. I remember at one point we were talking about live records, and he says to me, "Jens, what's your favorite live album?" And I said, "Oh, I probably have to go with Gary Moore live at the Marquee in London." And he said, "No way, dude! I was there." And so he knew everybody, and so Lemmy and Motorhead would come to Oslo to play, and Willie just brought me over to the club, and we would go backstage and meet Lemmy, and Willie says, "Hey guys, you got to come over to my place and have drinks after the show." Of course, just clean it out so we can have some privacy after hours. At 2:30 or something, they would come down, all the band, some girls and the crew, and the first time I was there, I was doing the bar. It was after hours, so we were closed, you know. Mm. And at this point, nobody drank Jack and Coke. Nobody wanted to mix anything into the bourbon or whiskey in Oslo. That was looked upon as a ladies' drink. Mm. And this time, Lemmy comes over to the bar and he says, "Hey man, what's your name?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Jens." And he says, "Give me a Jack and Coke." And I pull out a glass and get ready to make one of the regular Jack and Cokes as you serve them in Oslo. And he says, "What are you doing?" I say, I'm making your drink, sir." And I said, "A Jack and Coke? I don't mean one shot. I mean the bottle, man." so so I pull out the tray and I start placing glasses on all over the tray. And when I started having putting ice into the glasses, I think he felt like he was kind of sure that he approved of what I was doing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So so he said, "Yeah, now that's cool, and just bring it over to the table when you're done." So, so and I obviously emptied a bottle of Jack into those glasses that I have arrayed on the on the tray there, and filled the last bit of Coke, and I carried it over, and I started telling this story to people. You know, I served Jack and Coke to Lemmy, and it kind of caught on very fast. So it didn't take long before we were serving Jack and Coke to all the rockers. So that's my Lemmy moment.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. We surely miss him a lot over here in the States. He was very beloved over here, and he seemed like a really great guy. Last question here. After Erd, I read in an interview that you were taking time off to raise a family, and I think you were finishing up a degree at that time, and you were planning on pursuing a career in consulting. So I wanted to ask, since that was a few years ago, are you still involved with being a consultant outside of music, or is it involved with music in any way?
Well, no, I'm educated as an entrepreneur, so in business development and economics, and all of us in the band have careers, regular jobs. So that's kind of what limits our schedule to go out and do tours and all that stuff.
Right.
Because we don't ask for payment because we're greedy. We ask for payment because we don't want to go anywhere and lose money because we're leaving our jobs. Because we actually have houses and mortgages and families to feed here in Norway. So I did finish my degree as an entrepreneur, and I've done several things since that. Now I have a business in digital marketing.
Oh, cool.
So, and I have to admit that most of my, or a significant part of my experience with digital marketing or social media is from doing this in the band relation over the years. I maintain all our sites, and I don't do it to earn money. I do it because I found social media to be a perfect channel to be in contact with all our listeners all over the world that we couldn't meet by playing concerts all the time. So social media became a vital part of that several years ago already, all the way back to MySpace. So I kind of call it. It started for me as a necessity because somebody had to do it, and it became a passion, and now it's my job. That's the easy explanation of it.
Well, I am all out of questions today. Jens, thank you so much for taking the time.
I think I'm out of time also, so that's cool. Good.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking with me. I really look forward to listening to Winter Thrice. Anything else you want to say before we end the conversation?
No, just thank you, and I hope you enjoy the album when you get to hear it in the entirety.
I don't think you have anything to worry about there. Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, have a good one.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Yeah, bye then.
Bye-bye.